This is Classic FM.
Gareth, thank you very much indeed for coming in to talk to the Culture Club. I'm delighted to have you as my guest. Now, you formed a new choir called Voices.
That's correct.
And what was it that you were looking for when you chose the members of the choir?
I was looking for something that is incredibly hard to find, which is both a love of choral music and the experience to be able to sing it properly, but also a foot in the 21st century and an interest in modern music and just a general sense of being open-minded about music. And actually that was surprisingly difficult to find. We had about 900 applicants, and many of them would have had the right voice but didn't have the sight-reading ability. Some of them would have had the sight-reading ability but didn't have the right voice, or were perhaps a bit too boomy for a close harmony group such as ours.
Yes, because I suppose you want the voices to blend, don't you? You don't want any one voice to stick out.
Yes, that is the ideal. Yes, I mean,
idea.
Really, I'm trying to do something impossible, which is to take a group of fairly inexperienced singers, try to make them sound as close to the 16 or tenor bray as I possibly can, whilst singing Radiohead and various other
That's a near impossible task.
I think it is actually, but I quite like impossible challenges because then you're striving for something. And I think all of them liked the idea that they were involved in creating a record that they could play to their peers, and they would all think, oh, that's great. That's what choirs should sound like. So I think everyone I think if you've got a big mission when you're working, then it makes everyone gets involved, I think.
They're all quite young and easy on the eye.
Easy on the eye. Do you know that I honestly, I swear, it was not uppermost in my mind.
Well, I was
easy on
ask,
the ear was uppermost in my mind. And
so that wasn't a factor that they're telegenic.
No, it really wasn't. It was about finding people that had the communication skills, and I think through their voice. And I do think the visual aspect is part of it. There was an article recently, wasn't there, about the fact that if you played people just the visual aspect of, I think it was the Leeds piano competition, that people could 9 times out of 10 pick the winner just from looking at them. And so I think there is an element of, we live in a very visual culture, so I wanted them, if they walked in I don't know, twin set and pearls, it wasn't really, you weren't off to a good start. Having said that, there were some in there who just completely won me over with their voice, and I'd always, there's always the eyes shut test.
Now, you've said that you want to get away from the traditional repertoire. Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Well, I mean, there are plenty of people doing the traditional repertoire very, very well, and Harry Christophers or Sir John Eliot Gardner, or all of these people that I like to listen to, and I would like to introduce a new generation to, or to help be part of that. So I wanted to take something of that sound world, but just singing songs that people of that generation will find that they know. A lot of the names on the album will not be familiar, I think, to Classic FM listeners. Keane, Fife Dangerfield of the Guillemots, certainly Death Grips, that caused a bit of a press stir as we got onto the front of the Independent newspaper with that. These are not names that are familiar, but the sound world, I think, is. So it is supposed to be a meeting point between the sound world of Classic FM and the kind of pop sensibilities and or pop repertoire that a lot of young people will listen to. So I would hope that people will come to this album and just enjoy the songs as great songs regardless of their origins, and hopefully appreciate the sound world, whether they're coming from a Classic FM point of view or whether they're listening to Radio 1.
The Death Grips piece, of course.
Fingers crossed.
I mean, I think people will be receptive to this. I don't think that you'll meet much resistance, or at least I hope not.
It's not as radical as it sounds. I mean, it sounds like I'm not kind of writing a big new constitution for choirs, but when you listen to it, it's a very familiar sound world, and I think at times a really beautiful sound world. The Hamburg song that we've got, which begins the album, I think this is lovely. And there's a moment at the end that I call the King Singers moment, where they just do this lovely, lush little cadence at the end, and that's the sound world that I love, and you don't generally hear that in popular songs.
I've heard the Death Grips piece. I thought it was beautiful, really haunting and hypnotic. And it was a little bit like listening to the 16. I thought it was really beautiful.
Well, I would take that as a huge compliment. Thank you. That was the aim. The 16 does hip hop.
And what are the main challenges for you as a conductor with this new project? Are you having to deal with people's egos?
No. Conducting generally, I mean, I'm having to conduct at a higher level, so I'm being challenged. It's a new departure for me. I spent most of the last 10 years dealing with amateur singers, many of whom have never sung before, and I'm suddenly faced with a group of young people who really know what they're about. Some of them have studied at our country's finest music institutions, and are about to go off and have great careers, possibly as soloists. It's an incredible bunch of young musicians, so I suddenly find myself in front of them. So that's a new and wonderfully challenging experience for me. They're so responsive. You can send them in any direction, and they'll go for it. They'll do their best to get the sound that you want, and it's a joy, really. I mean, it's a challenge and a joy. In some ways, I think the biggest challenge, a lot of the work that I do, that people will know me from doing television projects, that you've got people singing because their husbands in the armed services, or you've got just about to do a new series for BBC Two, Sing While You Work, where you've got people in the workplace, so they're singing for their company. So there's an inherent reason, and actually getting these young people to say, right, you are, as a young musician, you are part of the mission to get choral singing out there. You can't just be complacent about this, and no musician can be complacent. We have to kind of keep championing the sound world, keep championing repertoire, which is why Paul Mealer's on there as well. And actually there's we did Morton Lauridsen piece, which is going to be on the classical EP, because that's where my interest lies. That's what's at the heart of the project for me.
This is Classic FM.